It's some of the steepest runs I've taken, um, and but you kind of I think we did a lot of that in the backcountry. Um, but the runs out west is just in comparison to the runs out here in the east. You're talking what 8,000 to almost 10,000 vertical foot runs,
Yeah, it's
like
unbelievable.
double, and then you're also dealing with a lot more snow depth. So
Yeah, we've been going to we went to Vail. This is the first year we haven't gone to Vail in 6 years as a family, and we used to love going out there, especially going to the back bowls. It's definitely a different world skiing out west for sure.
and down.
It is freaking awesome there. Yeah, it is awesome there. It is fantastic. Well, this is going to be fun today. I'm looking forward to this. I appreciate you guys having me on. I really do. It was very kind of you to do it. And
Of
are
course.
you guys going to be at? Are we? Alex, you going to be at NATA?
I will be there. Yes.
You're going to be there. Good. I'm going to be there. And Jeff, are you going to be there? I can't remember. You told me the date. I think you told me you're not going, right?
Correct. I'm not going.
Yeah, you're not going. Alex, I hopefully we run into each other because I'll be there the 26th
Yeah.
to the 29th.
Guys should get together.
For sure.
Yeah, we definitely should. Yeah, we definitely should. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Tom Harsha from my group,
Nice.
Frickin' Tech. So we'll be out there doing some special meetings and wandering around.
No booth.
No booth, no, not
Not
yet.
going to do the booth thing, huh? No, I don't blame you. I wouldn't either.
No, we're doing pretty well on the word of mouth side.
Yeah, word of mouth, you can't beat it, right? Very low customer acquisition cost.
Exactly.
Right? That's the best. Yeah,
I
that's
suspect
absolutely the best.
we will change that in the next year or three. Start really expanding.
No, that's awesome. It's all about people, though, whether or not they use it.
For sure. And they gotta like it.
True that.
Yeah.
I was having that conversation with my son a couple weeks ago. We were just talking about business and stuff. It's like, I forget what the example was, but something to come up. I was like, man, just all comes down to who you build those relationships with.
By the way, we got 5 seconds before
There we go.
creaky door. Here we go. Well, I got it working again just because it pisses you
Damn
off.
it. Damn it.
Yep. So Todd, welcome back to Refresh Friday.
Guys, it's been a long, long, long time. God, wow. We were
I
talking
couldn't
about
even
this the other day,
remember.
Jeff.
Alex had to jog my memory.
How many years ago was it?
I want to say it was 18, be my guess. 18 or
Was
19.
it that long ago? Jeff, you and I
Huh?
thought it was like 10.
18 or what? No.
No, 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
you were in your car doing it from the road, driving back from an auction.
driving back from Mannheim, Pennsylvania.
That's what we
Mannheim
were
Fridays.
remembering.
Yeah, it was Mannheim on a Friday. Yeah, I remember that day. Yeah, I do. I remember that day. Yeah, that's real
probably
smart
fun.
doing it in a car, right? That's
No,
you're
not
real
really.
smart, Todd. No, not at all.
I think that was our leading comment.
Yeah, exactly. Not at all.
Is he
Who does that in a
driving?
car?
What's this?
Yeah, I know. So my wife says to me all the time, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why are you bidding on cars when you're driving down the highway?" I'm sorry, I can't control myself.
I just saw one right there, and it looked cool.
Yeah,
To have it on the
exactly.
lot.
Exactly.
When you've been driving as long as we have,
Drive with your
it's
knees.
second nature. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
drive
reading a
with-
study
drive
the
with
other
your knee
day. That's right. I've used my knees. I was reading a study the other day. It was around manual shift, which of course we don't see too many of those anymore, and how they were matching it up to like if you have ADHD or ADD, how it makes more sense to have manual shift and how it keeps you off your phone and all that good stuff. I was like,
True.
I'm gonna get my daughter a
You
manual
can't get
shift.
you can't even get really stick shift cars anymore. You know, I was talking to Paul Daly yesterday from, you guys know who Paul Daly is.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about some of these cars at CES, and they've got these screens on them that literally go almost across the entire dash. And now
Yeah,
they're
new
trying to
Benz
have some,
does.
yeah, they have screens now that like they want to have like augmented reality in the windshields. And I was saying to Paul, I'm like, there's already enough distracted driving as it is. What on earth are people thinking by building cars with screens all the way across like that, and then actually having something up on the windshield where you're not focusing on the road? It blows my mind.
Well, I guess if it's autonomous by that point, then you won't
Yeah,
have to worry
we'll
about
see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll
Right.
see about that.
Which doesn't seem like that's heading in the right direction currently. That was all the freaking talk there for a while, and then you don't hear much about it anymore. There was a lot of issues around it. I think Musk even said something about, no, I think we're going to be further out than what we intended. So I
Gotta have
don't
a lot
know.
of bandwidth, a lot of bandwidth, a ton of bandwidth. See it
Yeah, that's
for a
good.
long time.
All right, Todd, for the people watching, maybe they don't know who you are, but I can't imagine. Give us a little bit of
No, we'll see.
history. What's Mr. Used Car King? What's just the history of how you got started, all that good stuff, and then just segue
Yeah.
into what you,
So I literally came out of the womb and was born and raised in the car business, like literally out of the womb. Like I was telling you guys off camera, I had a snow broom in my hand at the age of about 4 in Syracuse, New York, brooming cars when I
cheap
could
labor.
barely correct, when I probably was head high to the top of a fender of a car, if that. And my dad had a trailer and a string of lights, and it was an old Airstream trailer, and about 8 or 9
Nice.
used cars on his lot with just, I can still remember the light bulbs on Erie Boulevard in Syracuse. And in 1979, my dad had the opportunity to buy a very old, rundown Chevy store in Chittenango, New York, which is just east of Syracuse. And nobody's really heard of Chittenango unless you're a Wizard of Oz fan. The Wizard of Oz, L. Frank Baum, the guy who wrote it and created it, is from Chittenango, New York. So that's what makes Chittenango, New York famous. So my dad bought the store, and it was literally a dump. He bought it from a widow of a dealer that passed away, and the building was run down. The area was very over dealered. There was way too many Chevy dealers. And in the early 80s, my dad literally almost lost everything because the late 70s and early 80s was a very bad time to be in the car business. 20% interest, gas prices, you name it. It was a combination of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And by the grace of God, he made it through. And I worked at that dealership doing every single job that I could possibly do, from sweeping the floors, cleaning the gunk out of the service department, right down in the trenches, working in the parts department, selling. I did it all, and while working at McDonald's and Wegmans grocery store and doing other things too. But I always loved the car business, and went to Lemoyne College, which is in Syracuse. I got an HR degree, which turned out to be very good advice from my dad, especially in the car business. Having an HR
Mm-hmm.
background is extremely, extremely helpful. I didn't even want to go to college, and my father said, "Well, you don't go to college, you don't work for me." So I didn't really have much of a choice. So, and that was good advice as well. And when I got out of college in 1994, I said, "Dad, I'm ready to go. Let's go." He said, "Okay." I had already been going to GM factory auctions at the time, and going to auctions and buying cars, and I was ready. And the store was selling 50 cars a month, and we got it cranking. We got into the used car business, so we got it cranking. We went from selling 40 or 50 to 170, 180, 200 cars. And I decided to brand myself as the used car king and open up used car locations in central New York. So I bought an old Lincoln Mercury store in Cicero, New York, which is another suburb of Syracuse. I turned that into a used car superstore. And then I leased another previous Ford store that was in Cortland, New York, which is just south of Syracuse. Leased that for 2 years, bought the property, turned that into a used car operation. And then I opened up a third used car store in Elbridge, New York, right before COVID hit, unfortunately. And so I ended up having 4 stores. And we were retailing in our peak about 6,500 cars a year in a small market between really 3 dealerships. And about 1,200 of them were new Chevys, and the rest were used cars. And spent a ton of money on marketing and branding, and trying to made really good relationships with people like you guys over the years at
Mm-hmm.
NADA and
Joe
some of
Pistow.
the other trade shows. Yep, coming up to Stowe, working with Dealer.com, which was amazing. And in 2020, after COVID hit, we were struggling for a while, and I'd built the business up to a point where I had a great management team. I'd rebuilt all my facilities. I built a brand new 45,000 square foot used car dealership that was gorgeous. It was basically new, and I was either built to either scale or sell. And through
Mhm.
word of mouth, I was introduced to some people at Sonic Automotive. They flew up on the jet, and I met Jeff Dyke and Tim Keene and John Russ, and ended up meeting David Smith afterwards. And they said, "We want to turn your stores into Echo Parks. We want you to come work for us, and we're going to buy your Chevy store. What do you think?" And I thought a lot about it, prayed a lot about it, and I sold my stores and I went to work at Echo Park as a director. I was responsible for the delivery centers, which are basically standalone, very small operations where they don't have inventory for sale. They sell cars online and over the phone to people.
Mhm.
And the delivery centers are responsible for basically delivering the cars. So they were the last step in the, the online buying process, we could call it. So I opened up, what did I open up for them? I don't know, 15 or 16 of them, I think, in the time
Oh,
I was
really?
there. Yeah, and then May of 2022, as I say this year's over with, or this year just started. May of 2022, I left Echo Park and Sonic. They were great to me, but I'm an entrepreneur, and I said, you know what? I always thought at some point when I'm much older and balder and have more gray hair than I have now, if I ever sold my stores, I would consult. So, and I love the business so much, like I was telling you the other day, Jeff, that I love this business and I can't get away from it. So I said, you know what? I'll start a little consulting business, just me. And I'll try to work with dealers or vendors in the dealer space or people in the investment community that are possibly considering in anything to do with the auto space, retail or wholesale, how I can help. And I've been doing that since June of this year. May 31st is my last day at Sonic and Echo Park. So that's kind of the short version, I guess.
Well, you didn't take much time off between the two.
No, I didn't. I love to work. I love people, and like I said, I love the car business. I love the action, and I love the people. I love dealing with customers. I love dealing with people at the dealership, and I like helping people. Bottom line, and so I said, you know what, I'll consult. So I've been doing it ever since, and it's been a blast so far. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, knowing everything that you know, what do you, and you segue that into a consulting business, what do you focus on? I mean, you know so many channels and avenues, what to do, what not to do, what's successful and what isn't. How do you
He's
like
super focused on new cars, Jeff.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just new cars. Yeah, selling new cars. So, well, I would say my area of focus is primarily used cars, and that's why people reach out to me. But once you get involved in the used car department of a dealership, you guys all understand that a car dealership, just it's not just one department; it's multiple
Mhm.
departments, and they all have to work together. So, um, used car reconditioning, used car merchandising, used car acquisition turns into marketing conversations, turns into pay plan conversations, job descriptions, org charts, fixed operations, accounting, pay plan, tax planning, um, digital retailing. Like it always ends up typically leading to something else, depending on the size of the
Mhm.
store or stores that I work with. And then, for vendors too, I think that, I try to help vendors because I have the perspective of a small dealer with just a single point store. And then, kind of a small group. My stores were, it was 3, 4 stores, not anything big, but, we sold a decent amount of cars. So I have that perspective as well. But I also, I learned a lot. I worked for a public and I worked for a public with 10,000 employees. And that was an amazing learning experience for me. So when vendors reach out to me, I can really give them the perspective of a small mom and pop operation, a medium sized group, or even a large public. And I think that that's been helpful to them. And it's also helpful to me when I'm giving advice to dealers, no matter what the size of the operation is.
When you say public grocery store, what's public?
That's public,
Good
pu-
part.
that's Publix. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Actually, it just dawned on me, Todd. Did you discover North Carolina through meetings at Sonic?
Yeah, that's why I moved here. I was coming,
Oh.
I was traveling quite a bit, opening up delivery centers and coming down here for various meetings. And I was kind of looking for an excuse to leave New York anyways. So it was really just a great excuse to come down here. And my son, him and my nephew moved down here 7 or 8 months before we did because they started to work for Sonic. They work for Echo Park, and
Mhm.
I was coming down here anyways, and I was basically shagging up with them on a couch or staying at a hotel. So I said to my wife and my daughters, I said, what do you think? You want to move? And they were ready to. COVID changed a lot for people. I never thought I would have left
True.
Syracuse ever,
I was going to
but
say Governor
COVID changed
Hochul
everybody's
misses you.
perspective.
Uh,
What'd you say, Alex?
Governor Hochul misses you.
Yeah, I miss her too. I really, really do. I mean, I still have a home there. I miss this. There's a lot of things about New York that I really miss, especially the people like you and I were talking about before we started the show. I miss the people that I used to work with at my stores and some of my friends and my family. But I think that especially as you get older, you look at things a little bit differently, and I think you value your time a little bit more, and you value the sunshine for sure. And lower taxes is definitely nice. But people down south have been wonderful. When I moved here, I legitimately thought that people were trying to scam me because they were just so nice.
Oh, I hear
Like
you.
people were beyond friendly, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this? My wife and I were talking, like, is this real? Are people really, really
It's a
this nice
different
here?
world.
Not saying that people from upstate New York aren't, because they're nice and people are wonderful up there, but Southern hospitality is different. It's just real. The culture's different here, and I love it.
Hmm. Yeah, we go to Tennessee most years, and just a different experience.
Yeah, it's simple. I would say more of a simple life. And here in Charlotte, it's like I was telling you guys before, it's a car culture, and I love cars. So there's always people running around in antique cars and collector cars, and there's a lot of NASCAR people around here where I live. And I love the industry so much. I like being in an area where there's people are into cars, car shows. I go to a car show every weekend if I wanted to. So
No
it's fun.
road, no salt on the road down there.
No salt on the road. Cars are clean. So no, it's good. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so you were saying that a lot of it starts with inventory merchandising when you're
Sure.
with
Yeah.
stores and starting the
Yeah,
conversation.
and weren't you one of the first that really took the videos and was pumping them out to YouTube? You were doing something different around the videos. If I'm not mistaken, you were
So
actually in the videos.
Also
I
started
was. So
photo
I
booth.
did infomercials. But I did
Yes,
30-minute
that's what it
infomercials
was.
forever. I mean, for 20 something years. But, I mean, you guys know Joe Pastel, obviously, right? Uncle Joe.
Oh, of course.
Joe and I were building photo booths 15, 20 years ago when not too many people even thought about a photo booth. And I still have pictures of like the first ones with like the crappy lights on top and the tan canvas in the background. And we painted the floor. Merchandising's
I've
everything, right? And the first thing I do when a dealer calls me is I look at their website to see how they merchandise their cars online before I even get there. And then the first thing I do when I get to the store, I walk the lot. I mean, straight up, I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's walk your lot. Give me 10 keys to your inventory. Pull 10 keys, walk the lot, see what the cars look like, see what the cars smell like. Um, you know, Sometimes I'll drive them. And, he, Joe taught me a lot, right, about digital merchandising, and I learned a lot of it. Alex, I learned a lot of it from working with you guys up at dealer.com, and it's merchandising is so important, and a lot of people are talking this year, 2023, about getting back to the basics. I was on Clubhouse this morning with a group of guys to use all things used cars. We're talking about getting back to the basics. Well, merchandising is everything, and cars sit for a reason. Cars just don't. There's got to be something wrong with a car, and it's not always the price, and it's not always about the race to the bottom. It's a lot of times how the car is merchandised, and merchandising is super important.
I mean,
touche.
that's the customer only has two questions, and they only get to those two questions, which are how much is it and how soon can I get it, after they've made a decision that hey, I can see my ass in that seat, and they can't see their butt in that seat unless they see a good looking car on the website.
Correct. And so they're not even going to pick up the phone or
Yep.
fill out a form online if they want to, or our chat or text or whatever, unless, if I think consumers know that a dealer that has actually taken the time to really photograph a car properly and give the correct information online, I think consumers understand, you know what, this car dealer actually respects my time because people's time is extremely valuable. And that was always something that I stressed when I owned my stores that, our photographs were everything. the car's the star, right? The photograph means everything. So take the time and money and invest in a photo booth, no matter what size your store is. And if you can't photo inside for whatever reason, do really good photos outside. And even if your lighting isn't perfect, make sure you take pictures of as many options as you possibly can. You know, we built this big giant ruler, right? And we took the ruler and we put it on the back of the bed of the truck so consumers would know how long the bed of the truck is, because you don't always get that from a VIN explosion. It doesn't always show up anywhere on a website. Is a 6.5 foot box, is an 8 foot box, 5 3/4. So I copied this from Texas Direct. I saw Texas Direct was doing it on theirs, so I started doing it a long time ago. You wouldn't believe how many people commented about that when they came into the dealership saying, you know what? Thank you that you showed me how long the bed was on the truck, because the last thing I think the
Really?
consumer wants to do is be fooled, right? They don't want to be tricked into filling out a form so you can get their name and their telephone number, their email address. I think the more transparent you can be and the better you merchandise your cars, you build trust before you even talk to a customer or ever even see them in your showroom.
I buy that.
Agree.
You know what I'm
That's a neat
saying?
concept with the ruler.
It's
Never considered that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big fat ruler. I'll send you guys a picture of it. It's pretty. It's people. They still use the Sonic still uses it at my Chevy store now. It's again, right? Like we're all not. I mean, we're all relatively intelligent people, right? But I'm not the smartest guy in the world. But one thing I always did was I always looked to see who was the best in the industry, who was best in class, who was doing a great job, no matter where they were. And if I could pick up any little thing that they were doing, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Here's
sure.
somebody just commented. Somebody did the same thing. Alex Baskin. Yeah, Baxton said he did the same thing. Black and orange. I love it.
Another idea. I'm just thinking of my wife here. So, when she was looking for her last car, she really wanted to know whether our car seat would fit in it. You know, really
Mm.
time. And I was wondering if it makes sense to like have some sort of mock car seat that you can just throw in a car real quick in the back seat and snap a picture and kind of do the
That's
same
actually a
thing
cool idea.
for the mothers out there. Yeah.
Or do it. If you're really sophisticated, do it with augmented reality, right? That's actually a really
There you
cool
go.
idea. Yeah, right. Someday.
Yeah. I bet companies like Impel, formerly Spincar, might be able to do something like that at some point.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. That's a cool idea. That's a
Hmm.
really cool idea.
Yeah. Something also dawned on me as you were talking about the importance of inventory merchandising and getting back to basics. One of the things that's coming out of the last 2 years is a decrease in customer loyalty towards dealerships. Um, as if we didn't have bad reputations already, we really pissed off a lot of customers with our market adjustments. And
I agree.
yeah, and,
I think
and
it was I think it was a mistake. I think it was a big mistake.
so I think loyalty is going to be a big thing for 23 and 24, just trying to get customers back that used to buy cars from us or used to use our service department. Um, and it really is going to start at providing a better experience. And I think it starts a lot with what does your website look like and what are those cars? How do those cars look?
Totally agree. Another thing too, when you talk about market adjustments, there's going to be a big problem, not and there's going to be a huge problem with people with negative equity, and it's going to be probably, I think, some of the worst that anybody's ever seen in the industry. And dealers, I hope that they put away a lot of the money that they made over the last year and a half or 2 years, because there's going to be way too many people that are just upside down. I don't care what anybody says. Whether if you paid over list for a new car, if you paid 5 grand over sticker for a brand new Rav4, which a lot of people did, if not more in some markets, or 10 grand over for a TRD Pro 4Runner, or you paid 80 grand over for a G Wagon, or
G-Wagon.
you paid, yeah, or you paid 3 grand over sticker for a Silverado because nobody had any and there were no incentives, and you go to get out of that anytime early and you didn't have a good chunk of money down. um, I got news for you. There's going to be a lot of people in a bad position equity wise, and they're not going to be able to get out. It's going to be very, very challenging. The used car market, as you guys well know, is right now, I wouldn't call it a free fall, but there's no bottom yet. We haven't seen the bottom of the market yet.
Can it really get down to a I mean, I don't think the bottom's as low as others are thinking it's going to be, just because of supply. You know, we're missing a big chunk of 2020 and 21 models.
Oh,
So
for sure. Everybody, and I agree with you partially, but what I'll say is, before the pandemic hit, the average cost at most franchise new car dealers of a used car that was in inventory was between 19 and 20 grand. And interest rates were on a used car, you could get a rate if you had really good credit at 3%. If you had good credit union, in some places people were getting 2% rates on used cars. So it went from 19.5, let's call it, when it peaked, it went up to like almost $32,000. And now we're back down in a very short period of time, like one quarter, literally. It's been almost a quarter, maybe a little bit longer. We're down to about 25 grand. But while the average cost has gone down, interest rates have gone up. So people that were typically getting a rate with good credit in the twos or maybe in the low threes, if they have good credit now in a used car, they're probably going to be paying 8, 9%. And if they don't have great credit, they're going to be paying 10 or 12%. So that's a huge difference in payment. And you guys all know, as all the viewers here, used car buyers are payment buyers, right? They're payment buyers. So I think the used car market still has a ways to go because of the interest rate factor. If rates had stayed low, I probably would say I think the market probably would have bottomed by now, to be quite honest with you, because of the supply issue. But I think because of the supply issue, you're going to see more people probably buy new cars if they're available. I think you're going to see incentives on new cars, but you'll also have interest rate deals. You're probably going to see probably some 0% deals for 48 or 60 months again. You will definitely see some incentives for sure. And I think the used car dealer is going to be struggling quite a bit, especially in the late model, low mileage used car business. I think they're going to struggle. And you're seeing it with CarMax and Carvana and Vroom and any other new car dealer that is in the used car business, like for real. They're having a tough time right now. They're struggling.
yeah, we're definitely in for the winter months, probably into the spring for sure, where it's going to be tough on that front. But think about it for a minute. So a $32,000 loan at a low rate, you're talking $800 a month, roughly. Um, so a $25,000 loan at 8%, what is that? $600, 500 some? All right,
Probably, no, it's probably higher than that. It's probably like 7.
25 grand, 8%. Because most of them are doing
Yeah.
72-month financing if they can.
Yeah, which means people are going to be more buried.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
oh yeah. And we have seen Stellantis has rolled out probably the deepest rebate yet on Rams, hit 8 grand already back in
I
December.
believe it. They should. Drive by any Stellantis store. There's Rams everywhere. There's Gladiators everywhere. There's Wranglers sitting all over. Their day supply's creeping up. It's coming. And then the other factor too that I just thought of, and I read about this the other day, the fleets, the rental car companies are going to start to get some cars again. The factory is going to pump out cars to these rental car companies. I don't care what they say. They will be selling cars to rental car companies. They need them. And the rental car companies are going to end up at some point putting those cars back out in the used car market again, which will help the supply. And I also probably put us in a more of a normal depreciation. And what some people forget is the used car market was really artificial. I don't want to call it artificial, but it was propped up by the demand from the rental car companies. The rental car companies are what kept the used car market so high. They were paying stupid money for cars. And anybody in the business knows that Hertz was outbidding everybody. Enterprise was outbidding everybody in the lanes, paying 3-4 grand over MMR just to have a car that they could rent somebody. And that kept MMR
Mhm.
artificially high in a way. So it made it. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Like
Yeah.
it was like a 1-2-5 punch. Like anything that possibly could have happened did, and it really messed up the used car market bad. I think that's why you got this. I don't want to call it a free fall, but right now it kind of looks that way.
I just got an email from our Hertz person. I guess they changed jobs or something. And we've got a new person coming from Hertz. I just got an email for them. around purchasing more used cars from them.
Yeah, they're
I'll
going
have
to
to
have a
look at
lot
the
of them, and they're
rest
going
of
to
the
have a lot of miles
specifics.
on them. They're going to be beat to hell. But we'll
Hmm.
start to see some low mileage if they have a steady supply of cars from the factory, which they will. You'll start to see some low mileage used cars come out again, which will help. Will help. Like we need some normalcy again. I mean, don't we all just need some normalcy in life? I mean, with all the nonsense we've been through for the last 2.5 years, we just
I
need some
don't.
You
normalcy.
mean this isn't normal?
I don't see it coming.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, my God,
I
it just
I don't know if we'll see normal again.
I feel like the car business has had one of the biggest roller coaster rides, and we're probably on the smoothing out of this thing. Even though I think for dealers it's going to hurt a lot in comparison to the last 2 years of profits. Um, but I think the rest of the world is probably about to get some feel a lot of the pain we've been feeling as an industry.
I remember like the first big one for me was 9/11. 9/11 was the first big shock when I was actually really in the business because I didn't go through what my dad went through with 20% interest rates. I was a little kid, but 9/11 was the biggie. I remember where I was. I remember what happened. I was at the auction in Odessa, Boston, and Framingham. And I remember what happened to the used car market after that. Used cars dropped almost 50%, like after a few weeks, and the used car market bottomed out. And I remember the comeback from that. And then I remember '08, the financial crisis, the financial crash with the bad
Mm-hmm.
mortgages. And I remember $4 gas and the trucks and SUVs literally dropping 20, 30, 40% in value. And the Honda Civics and the Priuses and everything doing stupid money like cars have been doing. But I've never, ever would have thought I would have seen what we saw in 2020 in COVID, right? I've never, ever seen it, ever. And I hope we don't ever have to see this again because this has just been the used car market like tanked after COVID first hit. Then it started to shoot up and then it shot up like a rocket. Um, I mean, there was for someone with willing to take a lot of risk, which a lot of dealers did, some dealers did extremely, extremely well. I knew wholesalers that were buying cars, they were buying like 2018 RAV4s from consumers for 18, 20 grand, and they were selling them to Hertz for 26, 27 grand in the lanes. Like they were crushing it, right? Like crushing it. Guys like Bob Holland said is the best wholesaler in the world, just crushing it. And if you were a retail car dealer and you were disciplined and you had a 30-day supply of used cars or less, and a lot of them were, made a fortune, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's guys that just made a fortune. But now, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, right? And now what's happening is that a lot of that money is you got to give some of it back, and that's what's happened now because this used car market's been in such a free fall.
I got to pause that thought for a quick moment because I don't know what the hell Kevin Fry is talking about here.
I know. I think he's being a smartass.
I think he's winking. Yeah, yeah, I think he's winking.
Well,
My advice to him is bring a snow broom. Yeah,
My
bring a snow
advice is
broom.
don't do it.
I thought he
Yeah,
already
except
lived
that
in the
one.
north.
It was Ohio, wasn't he? Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
Ohio. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he's being a wise
built
ass.
that log cabin. Yeah. Well, so Todd, after inventory merchandising, you said that everything leads somewhere else. What
Yeah.
are you finding is really the next phase after that?
Well, the next phase is acquisition, um, inventory, inventory acquisition. So important, and I try to work with dealers, helping them develop a strategy to buy cars from consumers off the street, because, like you said, there still is definitely going to be a supply issue for sure. So, marketing and branding. Build a landing page and then really put a process in place, find a software vendor that allows you to be able to give customers either an instant cash offer or allow customers to, download photos of the car and then give customers an offer in a very short period of time after they actually, download photos of the car, and have a process in place to do it, and then put a follow-up process in place to follow up on those leads because, like KBB leads, like they're panning for gold, right? And buying cars off the street from consumers is the same thing. Um, you're panning for gold with all these leads, and you have to be able to give consumers an easy process to be able to actually do it, right, with their phones. And then you have to respond to them quickly. You have to give them a good range of what the car is worth or a true offer. And then when they actually get to the dealership, you can't make them sit around the store for 30, 40, 50 minutes, an hour or two for the used car manager to come look it over. And then the office has to cut the check and people are sitting there and they got two kids running around the showroom. Like when they come in, they got to be in and out quick. Um, and Carvana, again, like I would say, look and see who does it the best. I sold the car to Carvana once just to see how they did it. Um, Instant offer, which may have come back to bite them in the ass, but that's a whole other long conversation. But copy the title on the front, copy the title on the back, copy the lien release if you have it, copy of your driver's license, upload all this stuff. So when they show up to pick your car up or you bring it over to one of the vending machines, you're in and out and you're in and out fast. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so I try to work with dealers on believing that they need to do it, because you can't just live off trade-ins and you can't really buy cars at the auction and really make a ton of money with them. And then actually having a good process for consumers that's transparent, and that is actually really helpful to consumers. And then they also have to be competitive. If you're going to do instant cash offers, you've got to constantly be working on your algorithm to make sure that you're not either underbidding a car or overbidding a car. And if you want to go old school, which I kind of tend to agree with, and just have them upload photos and get back to them fast, give them a really good, solid offer, and then come up with some marketing that's compelling enough to get consumers to choose you. Because every dealer and their brother's got a sign out front: "We buy cars." Drive down Car Dealer Row. They all got signs: "We buy cars. We buy cars." Ads on TV: Carvana, Vroom, CarMax. We want to buy your car. So the one dealer that I work with in Charlotte, his offer is $500 more than any written offer you have. He will guarantee that he will do it. So far, it's worked for him. It wasn't my idea. That was what he wanted to do, but I helped him put a process in place. Um, we're doing at another dealer I work with in Connecticut. He uses his dog, right? He has his dog in his ads. Frankie's the name of this dog. So I said, well, why don't you just have Frankie Buys Cars, right? That's the dog's name, Frankie. FrankieBuysCars.com, and put the dog's keys, set keys in the dog's mouth or some money or something like that. Because if you don't come up with a compelling
Different.
message for a consumer, why are they going to go see you, right? Anybody's going to make an offer on a car.
Yep.
No, it's different. Something catchy.
You know what I'm saying? But it's got to be unique. Like, no matter what your marketing is, I believe it's got to be unique. And especially when it comes to inventory acquisition. So merchandising, acquisition, and then Alex, reconditioning. I work with dealers on setting up reconditioning standards. If you own a store, whether it's a big store or a small store, you got to have written standards, mechanical, written standards, cosmetic, and then you have to actually measure your reconditioning, like properly measure it, and see how many days it takes from the moment a car lands at from the moment you write a check for that car or goes out of your floor plan to the moment it's on the internet and on the front line. You got to really know, and you can't make it up and you can't guess. You have to use software in the store, and everybody's got to use the software that's supposed to use it. And you have to have standards that everybody can live and die by. So there isn't the one decision maker, the used car manager that says, yes, no problem, you can fix that car. Because what happens if they're on vacation? Like, you got to have standards for everything. So I help dealer actually create these standards, and and then if they choose to, which some dealers do, some don't, take those standards and then use them for marketing. Let people know how you actually recondition your cars and what your standards actually are. You can kind of give consumers a more of a watered down version, but enough to educate them to know that you have standards and that's what you do. So yeah, those another thing that I work on too.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
It's
Funeral is a big. Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to get into Ryan Everson's question, but Jeff, fire away.
No, I didn't see it, so pull it up.
He's asking an opinion about the OEMs getting deeper in the used car business. So
yeah, just every time they've tried, they've failed. We can think of General Motors tried it,
True.
Ford tried it. I think the car manufacturers should build cars, really, 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 really good ones, continue to support the dealers that sell them, and let us do the rest. I think that we've done it just fine for the last God knows how many years. And Car Bravo is kind of a neat idea, but again, it goes back to every dealer merchandises cars differently online. So you want to go to Car Bravo and see a car sitting out in the middle of a snowbank somewhere and then a car in a photo booth. Like, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Consumers don't want to see that. If you go to Carvana, you go to Vroom, or really Carvana, not so much Vroom, but at least you get the same exact digital merchandising every time with CarMax and Carvana. Vroom has different
Makes
photo booths
sense.
at the different auctions that they use, but like, I think that, I don't know, I think that the manufacturers should not try to be in the used car business.
Maybe not be in the retail business at all.
Correct. Build them, let us sell them, let us advertise them with our own money and don't take our money and let us use our money the way we choose to. We will sell cars.
Are you still a big proponent of the BDC? I know you established one, if I'm not mistaken, at Sun. Is that something you
Yes, I
still
had one.
recommend?
So we had a centralized BDC and then we actually ended up eliminating it. And the reason why that we eliminated it was because of, I'd gone to a very focused omni-channel platform at my stores, and I ended up going with Roadster, and I ended up using Roadster, ended up investing in the company. And my belief at the time was, I looked at what the BDC was costing me for sales, and I just didn't see the return because I wanted to have a fully transparent process online and allow consumers to do whatever they needed to do online and not ask a lot of questions. And I figured if they have the right car for the right money and it's merchandised properly online, they're either going to pick up the phone or just come in. So I chose to not have a BDC anymore. Now that was 4 or 5 years ago. That was times were a lot different. I'm definitely a proponent of a BDC. I think especially for fixed operations. I think fixed operations BDC, there's always great ROI. I think for on the variable ops side, I think it depends on the kind of operation that you run. If you're a fully transparent dealer that's got a great process online um, for digital retail and omni-channel, you do need a BDC, but I don't think you need to invest a ton of money in it. Um, but if you're an old school dealer that's just got forms on your website and you just have chat and you don't want to be transparent and you're just trying to get leads and get the phone to ring, ring, ring constantly and people to fill out forms all the time and have people chase leads with no phone numbers and just email addresses or whatever, no. I think some dealers also
Outsource
too
that.
need to understand that BDCs, like, they're a huge investment. They're a very, very, very big investment. You have to have a really talented person or people running them. And I had one of the best. Deanna Burke was the best. She was fantastic. You have to set it up properly. I had David Kane help me set up mine, and he's a pro. He helped me set my BDC up. But I had 20 people working in my BDC. We had good people, but there's a lot of turnover. It's a very difficult
Mhm.
job talking to people on the phone all day long, chasing leads all day long. I would probably say if you're not really in it and you're not in it all the way, I would consider outsourcing it. And there's a lot of great companies out there that you can outsource BDC services to for service or for unsold follow-up or unsold leads or equity mining or whatever. Before you build a BDC, I'd outsource it first and then decide if you really want to do it. And if you are going to do it, make sure you hire the right person and pay them no matter what you have to pay them to actually run it and run it right. Don't do it half-assed.
I would agree with that.
Yep. Well, there's another question. Actually, there's two questions from the audience. This next one is I don't know what this guy's after. He's I don't think he knows anything about his business either. That's why he's asking you, Todd. This guy, Alex Fetter, uh, he just wants to know you got any advice for his business?
For Alex, um, now I'm going to have to call him after this is over with. So he's put me on the spot. Any advice for Alex? Yeah, I would tell Alex to take, allow consumers to do as much of the transaction online as they possibly can, including giving the consumer the ability to give the customer a deposit online, uploading copies of their driver's license, and actually start the deal online and give dealers a really, really, really good low funnel lead.
Were you selling? How was your digital retail operations going? It's
Oh,
been.
and so where we were using Roadster and it worked extremely well. What I found when again, I'm not a Roadster cheerleader, right? At the time, for me, it was the best product that's on the market or that was on the market at the time, and I invested in the company because I worked with them on beta testing some things, and It was fantastic. But what I found is when you can really have a good, solid omni-channel website, let's call it, or process, it allowed me to hire people that weren't necessarily as experienced selling cars, that weren't savvy negotiators, because I went one price as well. I was one price and I did omni-channel. I could train people faster. I could hire a different kind of guy or girl to actually sell cars, and I didn't have to pay them as much money, to be quite honest with you. So it helped me lower my comp to gross. And it gave consumers a great experience because they had full transparency online. They knew the price of the car. They knew that we didn't negotiate. I spent a lot of money branding and marketing the value of one price, and then giving them as much information as they needed online to actually start the process. I mean, look at very small percentage of people go start to finish in a deal online. Like they just don't. They stop somewhere. Um,
Mhm.
some people go all the way, leave a deposit, upload their driver's license, and they do all that. But most people get part of the way through the process and then they stop. And I think what's important to focus on as a dealer or a BDC or a vendor is how do you interact with that customer when where they stopped in that process? Where do they actually just where do they bounce, right? Where do they go off the where do they go off the radar and stop in that online buying process? Is it because they just wanted to come in? Is it because they got scared? Some people just get scared, right? They're spending 40, 50 grand on a car, they just get nervous. So um, when you're building your contact schedules in your CRM and you're giving your people your word tracks to call people or you're texting people back, you have to like look to really see where they stopped. Like, did they go halfway through the credit application and just stop? Or did did they do the trade in, but they didn't upload their photos? Why didn't they finish? I think that's super, super important. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Mhm.
No, totally.
Another question from the audience. This one might be a little tougher to answer, so I might change this one a little bit. But you know, how would how'd you go about maybe getting a different kind of line of credit to be able to buy cars straight from customers if you've only got one other line of credit that's set up for just buying at auctions?
Um, so that's going to be tough. I think credit for, I just had a conversation with a guy, as a matter of fact, 2 hours ago about this because very, very small dealer and he lost his floor plan. And he's got 20 cars on his lot. Um, and I've been hearing, right, and I don't want to, don't quote me on this, but I've been hearing that some of the larger banks that do floor plans and independent used car dealers are having second thoughts about staying in that business this year and beyond because of everything that's going on in the used car market. I don't know if I can answer that question, to be quite honest with you. There are people out there, there are banks out there that are going to charge you a very high rate of interest for that risk. And matter of fact, I just did some due diligence with a hedge fund on a car dealer group, and they were looking at they're looking at the collateral being the used car inventory itself, and they were trying to do the math. And how do you do it right now when when the market's going like this, and you don't know where it's going to bottom out? It's really really hard. So um, it all depends on what you have for collateral. That's really what it comes down to. Banks want collateral. Banks are going to want to get their hands on as much as they can possibly get their hands on, whether it's your real estate, is it paid for, your cars, your house. That's tough. That's really, really, really tough.
Yep, bankers.
Bankers.
Yeah, I think we're a year or two away from really despising them more. Um, anyway, yeah, that is tough. I just couldn't think of a way to answer this. I don't know if that question was coming from the owner of the dealership or somebody who just works there, but
Well, the guy that I talked to today is going to be talking to, a guy that I actually know who's a used car dealer. He's probably going to just basically he'll be the bank for him. And there are people like that that will just basically they'll be the bank and they'll offer a line of credit to a car dealer, but they're going to want the titles, and they're going to want probably some collateral too. It's a tough spot. This is not an easy business, and it doesn't matter if you're just a small mom and pop place or you've got multiple rooftops. It's not an easy business. It's extremely complicated, and it's only going to get tougher, in my opinion. It's been easy the last couple of years for new car dealers that are just taking orders, but
Hmm.
those times are over with too, or coming close to it. But in general, it's just not an easy business. It's very, very, very complicated, and that's one of the reasons why I sold. Right, I always try to be ahead of everybody, but the business is just getting so complicated, and a lot of the dealers that I work with, a lot of them just they don't know things about digital marketing, or they don't know things about inventory acquisition. They know how to run a good business, or they may know a lot about fixed operations, but there's just some things that they just don't know, because you're literally running 6 or 7 businesses under one building, and you have to know a lot of stuff. I mean, straight up, you have to. And I didn't know everything, but I hired really, really, really smart people, and I paid them really well. And I surrounded myself with great people that worked for me. And then I networked a lot. And that's how I met you guys, right? It was how I met you guys was through networking, really. Going to NADA, going to Digital Dealer, going to driving sales. And the other thing I would say to dealers too is try to develop a really good relationship with some of the vendors that you have, because some of your vendors out there are really, really good people, and you can learn from each other. And that's why I want to work with vendors as well, not just dealers, because I want to see vendors and dealers really work together. And I try to help vendors understand like what it's like in a car dealership, the culture inside a car dealership, because a lot of them just they don't understand what life is like at a car dealership from 7 o'clock in the morning in the service drive till 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night when you're trying to close that last deal with a customer, and the doors don't get locked until the last deal is closed. They don't understand it, and they're hiring people now that are younger, that are in their 20s and 30s, that just they don't understand at all what it's like to be at a car dealership, and dealers
You
don't
mean
want to
what
talk to
work
people like
is?
that on the phone.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's what work is too. Yeah, you said it, not me, but yes.
Todd, if you don't mind me asking, and you're feel free to say I don't want to get into this, but have you ever entertained or invested in any of the automotive vendors out there?
So I invested in Roadster, which I'd mentioned to you guys, and that worked out really good. I was able to invest in dealer.com back in the day, right? That's kind of a long story, but
That probably
yeah,
worked
that
out
was
all
that
right.
was a gift. That was a gift. I invested in ACV auctions, and that was well before they went public. And I invest like I invest money now with Steve Greenfield. Through Automotive Ventures. And I've always, the companies that I've invested with are dealers or companies I thought that really made a good product that actually helped the dealer and helped the customer, and was something that I truly believed in or solved the problem.
Mhm.
And that was a disruption, right? ACV was a disruption to the wholesale business. Roadster was really probably at the time when I invested, and I still think now in a lot of ways, probably the best digital retailing product out there. It's not the best, but it's probably top 3 or 5. um, that was disruptive. Dealer.com, like back in the day, that was the freaking coolest place to go and work on a CRM project with you guys. Like I loved going up to Burlington, Vermont, and going to that cafeteria and getting those cool ass smoothies and coffees, and going in that big room. Like you remember, Alex, we went in the big room, me, you, and Joe Pastel, and all those programmers, and we sat for almost shit a year and a half, right? My God, like that was fun for me. And when I had the opportunity to invest, I'm like, yes, right? Like for me, it wasn't just about being able to invest money, but being able to actually beta test products in my store, which sometimes cost me money because it was beta, right? And sometimes it frustrated my people. But in the end, I was able to use products and actually, proof of concept, right? Like it was awesome. Like it was the best.
Nice.
Some fun times.
I
Oh
I
yeah,
missed that.
100%.
That was definitely fun.
Oh yeah, that was back when the car business was a lot more fun too. Like those were good times. Yeah, those were great times.
Well, they'll come back again. It's
Yeah, I agree.
this is just a blip on the long road of great automotive careers right now.
Totally agree.
Yep. The blip might not be over, but hey, we'll get through it. Yeah. So, man, we've covered. I think we. Well, I don't know. We've hit on brand building, which is another thing you help dealers with too. We touched on it a little bit,
Yeah,
but
Yeah. The first thing I would say is it takes a long time and a lot of money. My father used to tell me this, advertising is a billboard, right? And a billboard is all about impressions. And if you think that you can just run a couple ads and all of a sudden people are just going to run into your door or go to your website, you're mistaken. To build a true brand takes a long, long, long time and a lot of money. And the first thing is the why. Like, what is your brand? Um, I spent a lot of time branding myself the first time, and then I branded myself a second time when I went one price and I went omni-channel, and I spent a ton of money doing it. But the first thing when I went one price was why. You know, why are you choosing to be one price? And we spent a lot of money, especially with on TV with infomercials and a ton of money on social media explaining why. And it had to come from me, right? And it's not because I'm this handsome dude, right, just that wants to get on TV. Like I had to, as the owner of the dealership and of the dealerships, I had to explain to my customers, why am I choosing to go one price? Why do I think that's the best thing for my customers? And I explained it, and then we spent time and money and effort having my employees explain it as well, like why they believed that we were actually doing it. Um, so brand building takes, again, a ton of time, but it comes down to obviously the why, right? Like, why do you do what you do? Why is your dealership there? Why are you in the car business? Why do you want to service cars? Why do you want to sell cars? Why do you want to buy cars off the street? And then what's in it for the consumer? And make sure you're in front of them everywhere. TV still works, whether it's OTT or it's old school ads, news, sports, live sports. Radio still works. People still listen to old school radio. I don't care what anybody says. Not everybody's listening to Pandora and Apple Music. People still flip through the channels. But I think you got to be out there in front of everybody, and you have to be consistent 365 days a year. If you're just going to be on TV or radio or just run social media ads every once in a while, you're wasting your time. Like, be in it to win it.
I
Have a
hate that.
plan.
Yeah, I hate that. Come up with a marketing campaign, we'll run it for 3 months and then go dead for
Yeah,
three months. And then
it
it's
doesn't
like,
work.
it's
It
not
takes
going to
3 months
work.
for it to sink in. Yeah, it takes money. It takes 2, 3
Exactly.
months for it to sink. It does. It's impressions, right? Impressions, impressions, impressions. So yeah, I mean, I help
Yep.
dealers with that for the ones that actually want to truly invest. Um, and I try to partner with when I meet dealers. I try to partner them with vendors that I think are going to be able to work with with them as a dealer and really with their culture, their company, and they're going to offer a good, a good experience. And I think of that when it comes to marketing and advertising because what I did not like in the industry was there were so many people out there that were, and I don't want to say names of vendors, but you ever let's get the company that does the mailer, right? Like let's do 5,000 pieces and let's do this big thing with this mailer. And it's not well thought out and it's not done right. And they're just people that just want to sell you mail or sell you some like, cookie cutter commercial, right? Like I like to deal with vendors, especially when it comes to branding and advertising, that truly understand the why and can tell a story. Advertising is a story, and the most effective brand building ever is storytelling.
No doubt.
For sure, I think.
Everyone wants to be sold, right?
Everybody wants to be sold 100%, and they want to feel it in their heart, especially if they're going to spend a lot of money. I mean, straight up. I mean, a car is an emotional thing for most people. It's expensive for everybody, but it's emotional for a lot. A lot of people they identify themselves by the kind of car they drive. They just do. Most people do, not everybody, but most people
Hmm.
that's their car is kind of their identity. And I think that's what some of the car makers forget, right? These companies that build cars, they just forget that like people truly, most people, not everybody, but they love their cars. They love the freedom that it gives them, and it's part of their identity. And that's why it's really important to build trust with people, whether it's a new car or a used car, when you're going to sell it to them, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
Too much competition in the car making world.
Oh yeah, and car dealership world,
Yeah,
very competitive business.
yeah. Well, dealers get that. I know the OEMs do as well. But I sometimes think, especially when the manufacturers are trying to do retail that they're looking at companies like Apple or whatnot who are successful at manufacturing and retailing. But to your point, Todd, they might seem to forget that that's a much narrower set of manufacturers, and it's a different product set and all sorts of things. So it's also a
An
much
iPhone,
and,
yeah, an
yeah.
iPhone's not a car. It's not even
Oh,
close. People don't identify. They might identify by their case on their phone if they got some fancy case on the back, right? But
yeah.
they don't. They don't identify. They identify themselves with their car. And I was talking to Paul Daly yesterday. Sony wants to make cars now. They're showing these butt ugly cars out at the Consumer Electronics Show. And Sony and Honda, they're like doing this joint venture, but they're not talking about what Honda dealers are gonna or not gonna do in that venture. And like that would concern me as if I was a Honda dealer, I would be very concerned that Honda's doing something kind of on the side. It's almost like being married and have a girlfriend on the side or a boyfriend on the side, right? Like it's kind of like that's what they're doing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
You're not being
it's something to
transparent
be
about
very
it.
concerned about.
Yeah, you got to be transparent about those things.
Yeah, and they're not. They've been very vague with everything that they've discussed publicly about this joint venture with Sony because I don't care what anybody says. Everybody has these dreams, these OEMs that, oh, we don't need dealers, we don't need dealers. They don't understand what it's like selling a customer a car and then having to service it afterwards. They don't have a clue. And
Mhm.
they're great people, don't get me wrong. Like they are everybody I've dealt with, especially with General Motors, has been fantastic. They're good people, don't get me wrong. But they don't understand the culture in a car dealership and they don't understand car buyers and people that are coming back in for service. Like they don't see it. And for them to just think that someone's going to go online someday, I don't care if the car's electric or it's a gas powered car. It doesn't make any difference. People are not just going to click and order a car and come in, especially a used one. Like I don't believe it. You have to be able to service these cars after the fact. And if they think they can cut the dealer body out someday and then have independent repair shops do warranty work, they can forget about it. They will have no brand loyalty, period. Brand loyalty is kept not by the manufacturer, it's by the dealer.
I had an epiphany when I went to work at dealer.com, Todd. So
It's
having been in the dealership for decades before, I was very used to the gray world that the dealership is. I mean, if you're in the sales business, like there's no such thing as a no, there's only yes, and it's how do I always get to the yes. So you make everything gray, so you never, you never have to get a no. But when I went to dealer.com, it didn't work that way at all. So as I'm trying to negotiate with engineers to get things in product or whatnot, to them the world is yes or no. Can you do it? Yes. Can you do it? No. And there's no in between, and the
yeah,
negotiation in that world is very different. It's a very black and white, super logical, very precise kind of setup because you're building something. You have to be that way. It has to be architectured and built precisely. And I think the manufacturer culture is built around that kind of person who thinks in that nature. And the dealership and the customers, especially who come to buy cars, are not in a logical state of mind. It's all emotion, and
I agree.
that's why
That's a
Yeah,
good
I
I
think
point.
there's
absolutely agree,
a
100%.
clashing in those cultures because of that.
Do you do you also think they put too much weight on the statistics that come out of the younger generations?
I think there's a lot of research that a logical person goes into, and maybe not as much gut.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, they always talk about, was it Generation X and Generation Y? And to me, it's about who has money and who has credit, right? Like those are the people that you really should be focused on. Um, and I think it's smart to focus on the next generation coming up, or the next income earners and the next people that are going to start families. I think that's important. But as I get older, right, and you guys, we're all getting older. There's wisdom. You can't put a dollar value on wisdom.
Nope.
You just can't.
Nope.
Well, that's a good note to end on, Todd.
Absolutely.
Because
Perfect.
you
This
have
has been fun.
Perfect.
you've dropped some wisdom today for sure.
This has been a blast.
Yeah.
So good to do this with you guys. I'm looking forward, Alex, looking forward to seeing you at NADA. I can't wait to get out to Dallas. It's going to be a good time. Yeah, it's going to be a really good time. And Kirshner, like I said the other day, it's good to see you got all the hair still. I was never been blessed with that head of hair like you got, man. You still got it. God bless you.
No, it's always a pleasure seeing you, Todd. We'll have you back on maybe next several months or something like that. We'll
Whenever you guys want
see
to,
how
I'd love to
everything's
do it. It's
going.
been a blast, and I hope the audience got a lot out of it today. Thanks, you guys.
I'm sure they did.
I think they
All
did.
right. Make it a
All
great
right.
weekend.
Take care. See you. Take care.